New York City's new mayor promised to freeze rents and build hundreds of thousands of homes, but a massive $5.4 billion budget gap might force everyone to pay the price.
It really might.
Welcome to this deep dive. We're jumping straight into the numbers today because Mayor Zohran Mamdani just released a $127 billion preliminary budget.
Right.
And he is staring down a massive $5.4 billion shortfall. So to fix this, he is pitching two main options.
Yeah, two very heavy options.
Option one is a 2 percentage point tax increase on millionaires. Option two, which he calls a last resort, is a 9.5% hike to the city's overall property tax rate.
Which is huge.
It is. And at the exact same time, he wants to push through a 4-year rent freeze and build 200,000 subsidized homes.
Right, which sounds great on paper.
Exactly. But the catch is that 213,000 affordable housing units already face operating deficits. If rents freeze while costs rise, the whole system could crack.
It's a collision course. You have these massive promises hitting a very hard wall of economic reality.
Which brings us to our mission for this deep dive. We are unpacking a huge stack of sources today.
Oh yeah, we've got everything.
We have reports from housing advocates, city controller data, analysis from conservative think tanks, and progressive roadmaps.
It's a lot to sort through.
It really is. But before we get any further, I need to make something very clear. These sources contain highly charged political opinions.
From both the left and the right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we are not taking sides today. We are not endorsing any specific viewpoint. We are simply exploring the data and the arguments presented in these materials to help you, the listener, understand this debate.
It's the only way to really grasp what's going on. Just look at the math.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start with the rent freeze. He wants to freeze rent for 1 million rent-stabilized apartments.
Which is a massive chunk of the city.
Right. But the math behind the scenes tells a completely different story.
It does. I mean, operating expenses for affordable housing have jumped 40% since 2017.
40%.
Yeah. And a huge part of that is insurance. Insurance costs skyrocketed 103% over just 4 years.
That is just wild.
It brings the average cost to nearly $1,770 per apartment, just for insurance.
So the buildings are already bleeding money.
Exactly. The Rent Guidelines Board shows 10% of stabilized buildings already have costs that are higher than their income.
Wow.
And what's fascinating here is what happens next. If landlords can't cover basic bills, water, fuel, maintenance, the buildings just fall apart.
Right, they stop fixing the boiler.
Yes. And eventually they stop paying taxes. The city seizes them for unpaid taxes.
Right.
Up to 100,000 units could go into tax foreclosure.
100,000.
And it would cost the city billions to fix them.
So a blanket freeze could actually trigger a collapse.
Mm-hmm.
But one of our sources, Vital City, brought up a targeted solution.
Yeah, the AEP idea.
Right. Instead of a blanket freeze, use the alternative enforcement program to freeze rents only for the worst 3 to 5% of slumlords.
The ones who are actively negligent.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It penalizes bad behavior, but lets good landlords get small increases to keep up with inflation.
Which makes sense. They also mentioned fixing the state hardship program. Right now, it takes forever for a bankrupt building to get an emergency rent increase. Fixing that would save thousands of units.
So we have a housing crisis colliding with a budget crisis. The mayor needs money, which brings us to the tax tug of war.
A big fight.
And there is a real math trick here that city and state New York pointed out. Mamdani calls his millionaire tax a 2% increase.
Right, which sounds tiny.
But it's actually a 2 percentage point increase. He wants to take the rate from 3.88% to 5.88%.
That is a massive difference.
It really is. That is actually a 52% tax hike on those earners.
Yeah, and his backup plan is that 9.5% increase on the average property tax rate, taking it from 12.28 to 13.45%.
Which is drawing fierce opposition from everywhere. Let's break down these dueling perspectives neutrally. Let's look at the market view from the Manhattan Institute. They argue the city has a spending problem, not a revenue problem.
Right. They point out that taxes on Wall Street bonuses just wiped out $5 billion of the budget gap overnight.
Just like that.
Exactly.
No.
They warn that massive tax hikes and class warfare rhetoric will just drive away the wealthy tax base the city completely relies on.
But then you have housing advocates, like Carlina Rivera, who also hate the property tax idea.
Yeah, for totally different reasons. She argues that raising property taxes on multifamily buildings will destroy the rental market.
Because the owners will just delay repairs.
Exactly. Older buildings have huge maintenance costs. If you raise their taxes, they have to pull that money from the repair budget.
It's a squeeze. And another pressure point is labor costs. The mayor pledged to use all union labor for his 200,000 subsidized homes.
Which means prevailing wage mandates.
Right. And how much does that add?
It increases affordable housing subsidy costs by 15 to 35%.
Wow.
It could wipe out nearly a quarter of the new construction budget right from the start.
So you get better wages, but way fewer homes built. Think about how this impacts you as a listener. Whether you rent or own, when a building's costs outpace its income, the quality of your entire neighborhood changes.
The math always catches up.
It does. Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Controller Brad Lander has a plan for a massive structural overhaul.
Because the current system is completely broken.
It really is. Explain the inequity here.
Well, right now, a $34 million luxury condo in Manhattan might be wildly undervalued for tax purposes.
Compared to what?
Compared to a regular family home in the outer boroughs because of fractional assessments.
So Lander proposes grouping 1 to 3 family homes, condos, co-ops, and small rentals together,
And taxing them uniformly based on actual sales-based market value.
which wipes out that weird fractional math.
Yes. He also wants to create a 21st century Mitchell-Lama program.
Right, to subsidize permanently affordable cooperatives in the outer boroughs.
For people making between 50 and 110% of the area median income.
It gives working professionals a chance to own something. But speaking of building, we have to talk about transit-oriented development.
TOD. This is crucial for new supply.
We looked at data from an MIT researcher, Vincent Rollet. If the city allows denser housing R8 zoning within a quarter mile of every subway stop,
The results are massive.
they really are, the city could boost its housing supply by 15%
Grow the population by 12%.
and lower rents by roughly 10% across the board.
Just by upzoning the subways.
But people always ask, aren't the trains full?
Not anymore. Hybrid work left the subways with peak hour capacity. The trains can easily handle the new riders.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, how do we build new transit without going broke?
Value capture.
Right. Explain value capture.
So when you build a new subway, the private land around it shoots up in value.
Millions of dollars of new value.
Exactly. By mapping a split-rate land value tax district around new projects, the city captures that private land value windfall.
It essentially pays for itself.
Yes, funding projects like the Interborough Express.
So what does this all mean? We are watching the city try to balance the noble goal of affordable housing with the harsh mathematical realities of rising insurance, labor, and maintenance costs.
That is the core conflict. Whether you rely on market-driven upzoning, progressive wealth redistribution, or technocratic tax reform.
Like the Mitchell-Lama revival.
Right. Every single choice comes with massive financial trade-offs.
And again, we aren't endorsing any specific agenda today. We just want to shed light on the facts driving these decisions.
The math doesn't take sides, it just is what it is.
Exactly. Which leaves you, the listener, with a final thought to mull over. Think about the buildings in your own city. If a government steps in to freeze prices, but the basic costs of concrete, insurance, and labor keep climbing.
Who ultimately pays the price when the roof caves in?
Exactly. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.